Welcome to Human Powered, the podcast about creating a high-performing agency or consultancy business. I'm Trenton Moss, leadership coach, exited agency founder, and author of the book Human Powered. And on my podcast, my guests spill their secrets about how they've created high-performing teams and how this has translated into running a high-performing business. And today I have Tamara Littleton, founder and executive chair of Social Element. Tamara, hello.
Hello, Trenton. It's lovely to be here.
So Tamara, you founded Social Element 22 years ago. Obviously a social media agency. You're on a mission to make social better. And you've really scaled the business over the last 22 years. You've got around 300 people across 5 continents now, work with big global brands like Oreo, Nissan, and Dr. Pepper. And outside of Social Element, you're also a fellow of the Marketing Society, and you're regularly featured on the YouTube LGBTQ plus executive list. Tamara, how do you define high performing within Social Element?
Well, thank you. I mean, it's such a great question, isn't it? And for me, I think if I focus on the senior leadership team rather than the entire 300, but because that's the team that I'm sort of so closely involved with. And for me, it's about having high trust and good communication. And also something that doesn't always get talked about, it's vulnerability. And something that we brought in many years ago, I feel like it was probably about 10 years ago or something, we invested quite a lot in doing DISC training to help us actually work as a team to sort of focus on the vulnerability, which helps build trust, which then leads to the good communication. And right at the sort of top is the accountability. So that, for me, is how you have a high-performing team. And also, I'm obsessed with team sport. I used to do a lot of team sport when I was sort of younger. I played hockey to a very high standard. I was a goalkeeper, and there's something about leading from the back, I think, so you can kind of see what the team's doing. And then I played a lot of football. Choir is my new team sport because I haven't got time to sort of run about fields anymore. But I think having that sort of focus on sport does allow people to sort of really understand their position in the team and know what your role is as well. So yeah, that for me is high performance.
I think what you're saying is you as the leader, you lead from the back. Your role as a leader is to enable everyone else to have high trust, good communications, show vulnerability, and then make sure everyone else knows their role. And I think if you're a leader from the back, you're moving out of their way.
Totally. And I think, it sometimes gets called like sort of service leadership, or it is about not letting your own ego get in the way and allowing people to really sort of drive the business forward. And you mentioned about that, I'm the exec chair. I moved myself into that position just in April of this year. And so again, it's been another sort of shift of I have to get out of the way even more. I will hold everybody accountable, but I'm not doing the day-to-day sort of operations. So I think just constantly, having great people, let them do their job and get out of the way.
Now, for many founders, getting out of the way can be difficult because, of course, when you start the business, you're responsible for everything, and gradually you have to let go. Now, what advice would you have for people who are going through that process, scaling their agency and having to get out of the way and trust people?
Well, I think right from the beginning, I sort of knew that it was going to be a big agency. I always wanted it to be a big agency. So I think I did build the different divisions, even though you're right, I was doing it all at the beginning when it's just you, and then you start sort of bringing in a small team. We sort of went from 5 to 20 to 50 to 75 to 150 to 300. So we had some big jumps along the way. But those early days, you are kind of taking care of everything. But because it's probably my corporate background, I was sort of at the BBC, and I was in publishing before that, and a company called Cello. I think I was very good at the organizational structure. So I built the marketing division, the finance division, and then I was kind of like, well, which bits can I do and which bits do I need to outsource? And that's a sort of a good way. It's again, I will sort of say it's about not having a big ego. I know there are some things I'm not great at. I've never been that strong on the finance side, for example. So that was the first thing to go and get someone else to do it. So I think I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not great at. And so that is a really humbling thing of just hire people who are better than you. And as I said, get out of the way. And I think once you start doing it, it is about letting go. I am a massive control freak. I'm sure many, many founders are. But the company is not going to succeed if I'm burnt out trying to do everything. And it's never going to grow. So we have pivoted so many times. As you can imagine, a social media agency, I started it before social media existed. So it was before YouTube, Facebook, Twitter wasn't around then, or X rather. So, what we started off doing is not what we do now. We've had to sort of pivot, but that has involved bringing in good people who can drive the business forward and pivot so many times. So yeah, it's a mindset, isn't it?
That's very inspiring to hear, that as a self-confessed control freak, you are able to let go. And it sounds like the way you did that was through great self-awareness, understanding what you're good at and what you're not good at, but also thinking about that future and defining that ideal org structure you want to get to. And by having that vision of where you want to get to and realizing you can't do all those roles, I think that perhaps helped the control freak in you to kind of reduce a little bit.
Totally. Absolutely.
Tell me a bit about the DISC training that you did. It sounds like that had a really big impact.
I sort of built a very positive culture. And what was happening is that the team at the time were not always challenging me. I think because I'm a little bit conflict averse, it became this sort of very positive. I joked about being, at the time I was the CEO, as the chief eternal optimist. And, I'm very kind of like positive and don't worry if things are going wrong. Let's just kind of crack on, which is, a great environment to have. But what happened was that people were not necessarily challenging some of my ideas. And so we brought in DISC training. And it had a massive impact because I think it's based on, there's a guy called Patrick Lencioni, and he's written a sort of a series of books. And so it's all based on that. And it is about understanding your different personality types as well. There are different ways to do it. Some people do like colors, for example. So, you have your personality type. It just meant we were more respectful with our communication to understand that someone who is a high D, for example, wants to get stuff done. They might sort of dominate a conversation a little bit. They're fast thinkers. People who are more S personality need to sort of sleep on things, perhaps kind of come back with a more measured response the next day. Don't necessarily like to sort of make a fast decision in a meeting. This is just sort of one bit, but And it was also allowed us to think about, who are the more extroverted leaders, who are the more introverted. So by having the words to describe our different styles, we were just so much more respectful. And then we worked on how do we sort of, trust each other. And some of the team have been with me for like 15 plus years. And then we've had sort of newer people come in just over the last 3 years. I'm still talking about the senior leadership team. When you have that way to describe yourself, you just have more confidence in each other. And everyone knows that I'm an ambivert, for example. So I'm kind of a little bit in the middle. I was, sometimes extroverted, but a lot of the time much more sort of thoughtful. But I think we just understand how each other ticks. And that has led to incredibly high trust. And, they genuinely are my friends as well.
It's great to hear that positive impact of what DISC has had for you. In my experience, most conflict that happens at work and relationships that fall apart, it's just down to communications. It's not down to necessarily having a difference of opinion. It's because one of you likes to communicate in a certain way, and there's no right and there's no wrong. Something else you mentioned, Tamara, that I want to pick up on. You talked a bit about your fact that you've come from, a bit of a corporate environment. And I know some of the people on your leadership team are also from a corporate environment. That's quite unusual in the agency world. So tell me a bit about how does having that corporate background add value to social element and ultimately, help you to become a high performing business?
Yes, so I'd love to sort of say it was all by design, but some of it was luck. So some of the people in my team came from corporate backgrounds, like BBC, AOL, for example. So people who had that experience of those early communities. So just because social and digital was not very established, I was attracting people who were a bit more geeky like me, I suppose, who were sort of already working in online. However, there was also this key thing is that I started the company as a remote agency all those years ago. I mean, of course, that's not, that's no big deal at all now because so many people run remote teams, but it was a big deal back then. And it did mean that I attracted some people to the agency who wanted to be able to work from home and do sort of school pickup and raising their children or had like different sort of caring needs at home. And so it just meant that I got some incredibly talented ex-corporate types who wanted to be able to work from home. So they were they were absolutely brilliant. What it meant for me and for the agency is that there were just some things that you don't realize that you just know, like how to run an offsite and do sort of strategy meetings. We were doing like SWOT analysis and working out all the sort of threats for the agency. And so these things, perhaps others wouldn't normally be what they do, but we just had people who were just so comfortable with how to run the corporates. And also you kind of have like a great little black book of contacts. I think it makes it easier to sort of just say, right, I don't know how to do this, but I can find someone who does. And so yeah, I think there was a real advantage, but the particular people that I attracted were also real doers, because what you can't have is someone who is perhaps a little bit used to running a team who do all of the sort of the work. So you do need people who've got the corporate background, but are fully prepared to get stuck in, and sometimes starting a team from scratch, which means that they are doing lots of busy work themselves, but know how to bring in teams as well.
It sounds like you're able to attract people who've got that understanding of how to kind of organizationally structure and scale a business, but you always want to make sure it's people who are doers as well, who can crack on and get things done.
Yes, absolutely. And also, interestingly, I didn't start an agency. I started a company, and then I accidentally found that I was in an agency world. And so it was like, oh, okay. So I think it meant that I didn't copy how other people were doing it. I was just doing it the way that I knew, which was more sort of corporate based, I suppose. So yeah, it came as a bit of a surprise that suddenly I was running an agency.
And your company, which then evolved into an agency, has obviously seen tremendous growth over the last 22 years, starting with one person, you, and growing to over 300 people now. How do you get the best out of your team when you're small versus medium-sized versus 300 plus people?
Well, I think the model has been really critical, because there have been times where we've gone through phenomenal growth. When we took on our first client that was over $1 million just from one client, that milestone moment when you get your first £1 million client, and we had to take on more staff. We sort of doubled in size because we didn't have physical offices, because we have like a remote model. That sort of scale became a lot easier, and it wasn't really disruptive to the culture, for example. Whereas if you have sort of bricks and mortar type company, if you suddenly doubled the size of the company overnight, that would be quite sort of shocking for the people who'd already been there. So these kind of things, it meant that we could just scale. Also, my first clients were American clients, so we were sort of international right from the first day. And so I think, getting the best out of a large team as we grow, it's taken a lot of focus on people. We are a people agency. I'm nothing without the team, because what we're helping our clients with is we're managing their social media. We're the voice of their brand. We're doing their strategy. We're creative. We're on TikTok every day. So I rely on my team being brilliant, and we invest heavily in our people. And in fact, I became a little bit obsessed with flywheels. So the sort of Jim Collins, Good to Great, and he sort of brought in the notion of flywheel. So at the very top of our flywheel is we attract and retain brilliant talent. So that is our key objective, is that everything then comes back to that, of how we do that, how we sort of focus on being a profitable agency in order to sort of afford great talent, for example. So I think that, to me, because I understand the importance of people, that comes through in the values and the culture. And also we have a chief people officer, great woman called Wendy Christie, and she's very much like the beating heart of the agency. She is so focused on talent and culture and internal comms. So I suppose the simple answer is we really care about people, because we're nothing without them.
You mentioned there, the top of your flywheel, attracting and retaining brilliant talent. What's the secret to doing that?
Our churn rate is much lower than average agencies. So we're doing something right. I think it's an ongoing thing. I think you just have to involve people in your culture, perhaps having a vision and a mission that really sort of brings people together. We're so focused on making social better for our clients, but also generally. It won't be a massive surprise to you that social media has kind of been going through a bit of a dark time. So we're trying to really sort of bring the joy back and help brands thrive. But it does mean we've got this sort of shared purpose that we talk about, even in our PR, in our marketing, in our interview process. We get people involved in that sort of shared mission. And I think that really comes across, that sort of like galvanizes everybody. As I think you focus on getting that culture right, but also you don't tolerate people who are disrupting that culture as well. I think Netflix always said it so well about not tolerating brilliant jerks. Sometimes you have to sort of make those tricky decisions as well, because if the culture starts to go, I think you just lose everything. For me, it's all about having top talent who love what they do and turn up every day doing a great job. So it's my job to keep that going.
Can you share some of the tactics for how you do that? You've got this large, globally spread out, remote team. How do you keep everyone aligned around your common culture, your values, your mission, and your purpose?
We over-communicate is a very sort of simple answer. Because people are based all over the world. So, we have clients where we're working in 30 different languages for them, for example. So we're sort of managing their social across multiple countries. The team is global. We do the regular monthly meetings that we make sure definitely happen, and a lot of effort goes into them. And it's the sort of sharing what we're doing, but it's also sharing people's successes as well. And so every month people have to send in what they've been working on, what they're proud of. And it's a lovely way to just sort of connect people. But you also have to sort of mix it up. So not everyone will go to the all hands and they might miss things. So when you are in an office with people, sometimes communication happens by osmosis, because you just sort of bump into people, those water cooler moments. So I've been slightly obsessed of how do we recreate the water cooler moments in the agency. And so we use Google, we use chat, we use these all hands, and we do actually invest in a lot of face-to-face time as well. So we bring people together. We eat together. I always think that the team that kind of eats together is sort of stays together. And so we do invest in offsites, training, and of course people are going off to see their clients all the time. So there is a big in-person element to what we do, because I think that's where you do sort of get those real connections. But then the sort of way that we're actually managing people with sort of the technology, the communication. It just all helps to build connection. Just going back to sort of celebrating people, there are so many sort of side chats that go on. You need the technology, you need the process, but it's all about communication.
And indeed, as you're saying, over communication. There's something called the mere exposure effect, which says that for someone to get used to an idea, they need to be exposed to it 10 to 20 times. And often as business leaders, we can get upset because, well, I've told this to the team and no one seems to be doing anything about it. But in order for them to get used to it, up to 10 to 20 times, you need to communicate. So I think your over communication is a good strategy.
Yes, so repeating yourself and keeping it sort of simple. So we've got our sort of vision around what we're doing for our clients and making social better, but we also have like what are our internal targets. So every year we have the annual agency strategy, and it's become more and more simple. It's just like, this is our target, this is what we're doing, this is our flywheel. And some of it doesn't change, but it does mean that it kind of gets embedded. That it takes a lot of effort to have a simple message, but the more simple it is and the more repeated it is, it does stick in. So, but yes, sometimes I do sort of, as you say, I kind of like think, surely people know this, but yeah, we do have to allow for that and keep saying it, keep repeating it, and say it in different ways.
Tamara, I want to talk a bit with you about diversity. You're a public proponent of diversity. Can you share with us, how does having a diverse team benefit you as a business?
We work with global brands and we are on social media for them. We are representing them and talking to their consumers. And of course, they have diverse consumers. So we need an agency that reflects our clients' consumers. But also, I think don't want to sort of work with everyone that's just like me, for example. You know, I think you bring sort of diversity of thought in, and you bring different experiences. It's not me just thinking it means for a better agency. There is sort of all sorts of data that backs up that diverse teams outperform non-diverse teams. So it's something that I'm passionate about, and also we measure it as well. So we work with a great company called Creative Equals, who sort of audit us and then tell us where we can be better, and then we make sort of changes to be better. And very proud of the stats that we have for, you know, in the agency. We have 47% from underrepresented ethnic groups. 15% of the agency is part of the LGBTQ plus community. 19% neurodiverse, and 14% have a disability. So I know those stats, and we will continue to sort of prove where we can as well. I think when you sort of measure things, it just sort of takes away the emotion. It's kind of like, okay, well, this is not good enough. Let's be better. So I think I am slightly obsessed about measuring and improving. And it becomes another area of why people want to come and join us and why they want to work with us.
That's lovely to hear that. And clearly it's working really well for you. I'm wondering, are there any challenges that come with having such a diverse group of people?
What we've had to do is be more mindful of how we create a diverse environment. So, for example, you know, focusing on neurodiversity, that was an area that we were not performing brilliantly in the past. And so we made changes to our recruitment approach and allowing things for, you know, something that wouldn't necessarily have occurred to me, but allowing people to, if they're going to be doing a presentation as part of the recruitment process, just asking them, you know, how they want to do that. Is that going to be okay? You know, someone's got dyslexia or something, you know, that just making allowances for how they want to show up and bring their best self to the interview process. So there are sort of small things that you can do that make a big difference. So I suppose I've had to educate myself on how do we create a diverse environment, and also going back to the flywheel, it's not just about attracting staff, it is about retaining staff as well. So, you know, how do we create a psychologically safe environment where everyone feels able to speak their mind and to say where we need to get better. We also have ERG groups, so employee resource groups around carers, LGBTQ. These people help inform the agency as well. So where I'm seeking information, the teams can sort of help. So I suppose the challenge is you have to do the work and you have to put the effort in and you have to make changes. But my God, it's worth it.
Tamara, you talked a bit about creating a psychologically safe environment where, you know, everyone's free to speak their mind. Can you share with us some of the things that you need to do to create that psychological safety across a large, globally dispersed business?
I mentioned about having a chief people officer. So I think having someone, I mean, you can probably tell I am very focused on culture and people. I'm fascinated in what makes people tick as well. But having someone who that is her whole job is to look after the talent and to help with that environment. And some of it is, about communications and internal comms, etc. It's also our actions. So I think as a leadership team, we are very open, and I know the word authentic gets overused, but we are our authentic selves. And that kind of allows people to know that they are safe to challenge and communicate. So I think the way that we present ourselves, the communications, the sort of how we act in different meetings, and also bringing in outside help. So, I'm not averse to paying for training, consultancy. I know sometimes it gets expensive, and if you're running an agency, you have to watch everything you're spending. But I've always found that getting outside help really helps us improve. I mentioned about DISC training. We rolled that out to the entire company. That was so important. We've invested in coaching as well, just to sort of help people with, individual needs. And then the actions and the words help create that safe environment. And we have a wellness manager as well. And she's amazing. And so we've got that resource if people need to sort of talk to her. And, when sort of bad things have been happening in the world, like the riots that happened in the UK, she was able to sort of check in with people and see how people are feeling. We don't just say we've got a safe environment. We sort of do a lot to make that happen. So do things a little bit differently. But I think when you have that psychological safety, it means that people can question authority, because I don't want an agency where it's just like, do this is the way we're going, everyone just kind of get on board. I want the ideas to be coming from everyone in the agency, and some of the new services that we've built over the years have come from people who feel that they have the confidence to say, I think we should do it this way. So it's good for business as well, but it just creates a kinder environment.
Tamara, thank you so much for sharing all of these things that you do and have done in the business over the past 22 years. Let's look a bit at the future. What's next for Social Element, and indeed, what's next for you?
Yeah, I think I'm still in slight denial that I've been doing this for 22 years, but it's an enormous privilege that I still love my job, which is, I'm so pleased to be able to say that. I mentioned that I've put myself into the exec chair role earlier this year, and I've now got 2 co-CEOs, which I love as a model. I really recommend it as a model. So Lynn Frost and Ashley Cooksley are my global co-CEOs who are driving the business forward, so that I'm not actually doing day-to-day. I'm sort of very much there and holding them accountable and there to sort of advise. But it has allowed me to focus on my second company. So whilst doing this, I've sort of then built up a second company 12 years ago, which is really sort of going well. So that is a company called Pulpeo, which is a immersive simulation company. So we do, for example, crisis simulations. So we create a crisis for a brand, and we have our own version of sort of social media, and we have role players who act as activists, trolls, journalists, and we can combine it with media training as well. It's so much fun. And that company is really growing. So I think by allowing myself to let others drive social element forward, I can actually invest time in Pulpeo and have it all. I love running both of them. So I can't imagine never working. I was talking to someone about this the other day. It's so sort of integrated into who I am as a person that so there's no stopping. It's just kind of I continue doing what I am doing, but with a little bit more freedom to not be day-to-day operational in social element.
Well, it'll be really interesting to keep an eye on how things go with Pulpeo, with you giving it your full attention. Tamara, thank you so much for joining. Your passion, your enthusiasm comes across in droves. It's been wonderful to talk to you, and I really wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you, Trenton.
You've been listening to Human Powered, the podcast all about creating a high-performing agency or consultancy business. Thanks for tuning in.